Rican tea twice a day for 30 days, morning and evening, I found that even though I had not exercised or ate any less, I had lost a whopping 21 pounds and almost 4 inches of my waistline. I had to tighten my belt 4 notches because my fat pants were falling off. That night, we all went out to dinner to celebrate my 21 pounds weight loss. But I had a big problem. Both my tea jars were almost empty. I needed to talk to Isabella and ask her for more tea. So I called the hotel where we'd spent our vacation, hoping she'd be at work, but I couldn't talk to her. The front desk told me that her 98-year-old mom had just passed away, and Isabella had left to travel back to Costa Rica. I was devastated. I felt immense pity for Isabella and her loss, but also for myself. For the first time in decades, I found something that worked for me, but I had run out of it. How was I going to continue my journey without the tea from Isabella? When Ken came home that evening, he found me crying. I told him what happened. He took a big breath and told me not to worry because we'd figure it out somehow. Then he hugged me and told me that he loved me and that he would do anything to help me continue my journey. We spent the next 3 days trying to find a chemist or a tea specialist that could tell us the Costa Rican tea ingredients, but we had no luck. But a few days later, we had our first breakthrough. A friend of Ken connected him to a guy called Dr. Dean. Ken called him and told him my story, and Dr. Dean agreed to help us. Dr. Dean was a homeopathic health practitioner and nutritionist, graduate of the University of Utah. He was successfully running his own clinic and a wonderful person with lots of charisma. Since his own wife had unexplained weight gain, he was really excited to help us to try and figure out the tea recipe. The next day, we shipped the small amount of remaining tea to Dr. Dean and waited patiently for his call. A week later, while we were having lunch, Dr. Dean called Ken very excited. He said, "Ken, I got your ingredients, and I don't want to sound too hype, but I think we could be on the verge of a huge breakthrough for weight loss. As soon as possible, please bring Barbara with you and come pay me a visit at my clinic. I know it's a 4-hour drive, but I promise it will be worth it." The next day, we were on the road to Dr. Dean. He welcomed us with a big smile and told us that he hadn't been as excited as this since he was in college. Before he told us about the ingredients, he told us that he'd spent many hours researching that tea, but he could find virtually nothing about it. The only thing he found was a research paper done by a group of scientists from the University of Utah and published on their website. They tested a tea from Nicoya, Costa Rica on a group of 132 overweight people who lost an average of 31 pounds in the 3 months of the study, even though the group hadn't dieted or exercised at all. Almost the exact same thing I had experienced. On top of that, most of the people in the group had healthier blood sugar levels, healthier cholesterol levels, high energy all day long, looked years younger, and were feeling happier. It sounded too good to be true, but I was living proof that it was real. Their conclusion was that the Costa Rican tea can speed up metabolism and increase energy levels by up to 53% because the special mix of ingredients helps revitalize mitochondrial activity in the cells, production of new mitochondria, and even increase the lifespan of human cells. Then, Dr. Dean told us something that made me mad. The results of the case study could have been a huge breakthrough for all the people who struggle with extra pounds on their bellies, and he had found it very strange that nothing happened after the study was published. So Dr. Dean called a friend of his who works for the University of Utah and found out that after the study was published, one of the biggest weight loss companies from the US had invested $2.3 million to continue the research. But weirdly, that had been 10 years ago, and ever since, nothing. In other words, the weight loss company bought the project to prevent the research results from being published in the media. Can you imagine the greedy CEO of the weight loss company? Hiding this research from the world must have made his company millions of dollars. He may still be celebrating because people like you and me will never be able to lose weight with the products his company sells. It made me sick. Then Dr. Dean told me about the ingredients. The morning tea had green tea, oolong tea, orange peel, lemongrass, ginger, and dandelion leaf. It then took Dr. Dean more than 10 minutes to share the amazing health benefits of all these ingredients on the human body. It turns out There were hundreds of studies in which these ingredients were showed to increase metabolism and energy levels, improve digestion, and at least a dozen studies of how they helped people lose